All right, so peace. I neglected to get to this from last week. This cat Charlamagne was on the ESPN show with Stephen A. Simp and the crew, First Take or First Fake, and he has a book coming out, and we're gonna let them cover the book, cover other topics, and I'll chime in when necessary.
It's about to get real, because we have a serious Cowboy fan here to face Stephen A. You've probably heard him on the hugely popular Breakfast Club, but he's also dabbled in television and the big screen. His new book, Black Privilege, Opportunity Comes to Those Who Create It, is available right now. We welcome Charlamagne the Guy.
And I agree. Opportunity does come to those who create it. But you have to have an understanding of your environment. You have to have an understanding of where you are, right? When he says black privilege, he's putting out a fake message because there's no such race as black. There's no such culture as black. So he's a guy who behind the scenes, he's doing all type of sexual favors, allegedly, to get in his position. But then he wants to get on TV and give an empowerment message based on a pretext that doesn't exist. All right. And believe me, he is doing things behind the scenes sexually to curry favor with producers and directors. All right.
Hey, what's happening?
So good to have you.
Stephen A. Max, what's going on?
All right.
Happy to be here.
Let's
Happy
get
to have you. Let's go.
So you've probably heard Stephen A.'s position on the Cowboys, right?
Too much. Way too much. All
They're
the
an
time.
accident waiting to happen.
Yes. He puts all that bad energy on us every year.
What do you want to say to him about America's team?
I mean, there's nothing I can say. We haven't shown improve. We haven't shown improve through actions and deeds yet. I mean, there's nothing I can say until we actually do start winning. But I will say the future is bright with Mr. Dak Prescott and Ezekiel Elliott. I wish Jerry Jones would make more moves on defense in the offseason. That's something that we haven't done. Our secondary sucks. And, I think we need some pass rushes. But I think the future is bright now that Tony Romo's gone.
Well, I appreciate your honesty.
Yeah.
I appreciate your knowledge about it because you're very factually correct in that regard. Because everything you just said about the Cowboys are right on the money. I don't have a problem with the Cowboys. It's fans of the Cowboys
I
that
understand
disgust
that.
me.
Yeah.
And here's why. They were 13-3 this year. The Cowboys could go 4-12. They go 5-11, and it can end on a Sunday at 4:00. And by 6:00, Cowboy fans are saying, we're gonna be all right next year, right? That is what bothers me.
Well, what the hell are they supposed to say? We're going to suck next year. We suck this year. We're going to suck next year. We're going to suck the year after that? What kind of dumb shit is that, Stephen A?
We're supposed to feel.
I'm just saying, 2 hours later, bro.
It don't matter.
You can't take moments.
No.
You guys rebound quick.
In life, you have to be optimistic. Okay, what I'm supposed to say, we're going to suck next year. No,
Oh, agreed. Agreed.
I'm hoping for the best.
You're hoping for the best.
Yes.
But if you know enough about your football, which it sounds like you do, you have known in the past they were going to stink the next year. Were you willing to admit it at that time?
No, I'm never going to say that.
And you're not supposed to say that. If you follow the NFL, you know that teams have such a huge turnover every year. It's very common for at least 2 to 3 teams that were in first place to finish last place the next year. Look at the Carolina Panthers. That happens every year in the NFL. So you can't predict what you're going to be next year based off of what you were the current season. So Stephen A. just talking shit as usual.
Every year we're going to the Super Bowl.
That's what I'm saying.
Every year.
That's what I'm saying.
Okay?
There we go.
See, I
That
also hate
explains
the
it.
Cowboys and Cowboys fans, but it's not even that I'm a Giants fan. I mean, listen, that's a lot of it. But it's that.
Giants fans are pretty bad, too, especially when you live in New York.
But,
As a Cowboys
fine.
fan.
But that's the point. There are Cowboys fans everywhere.
Yeah.
And what I don't like about it is they're not the most successful team of all time on the field. They're not the Steelers. They're not the most successful team recently. They're not the Patriots. They don't, but they.
Cowboys are nothing to sneeze at, though. They got like 5 Super Bowls, if I remember correctly. All right? Like, give them a break already. I mean, damn. 4 or 5, somewhere around there.
But everyone bought into Tex Schramm, some snake oil salesman PR guy once upon a time, who said it's America's team. And there are guys in Jersey, in Brooklyn, in the Bronx, all over the country, in the South, in the North, I mean, everywhere, who are
That was
Cowboys
based on
fans.
TV rights, though, back in the day.
Whatever.
The distribution was everybody could see
But
Cowboys, so
Stephen
that's
A.
kind
is
of
a
the reason.
Steelers fan. That's a proper out-of-market team to root for.
Steelers are led by a big bootlegger and Irish mafia member. Their owner, the guy who just passed, his father was a big Irish mafia leader. They got their start and got their money through the Irish mafia. All right, but they're not going to tell you that because they're too busy trying to glorify that family, the Rooneys. All right, the Rooneys got their start hustling as members of the Irish mafia.
you become
Allegedly.
a Cowboys fan?
Because I'm from South Carolina and I'm older than the Panthers. And my father is older than the Panthers, you know what I'm saying? So he was historically a Dallas Cowboy fan. So my father Larry in Kitfield. I don't know if y'all remember back in maybe 2011. Remember the guy that tased somebody at MetLife Stadium, the Cowboys fan?
Yeah.
That was my pops. That's how diehard we are. Yeah. So he was a Cowboys fan historically, so I had no choice. I remember him taking a Mark Ripien sweatshirt my mom bought me and taking it in the yard and burning it.
Right.
Yeah.
Let me transition a little bit, y'all, because at some point in time, I can't wait till I come on your show because I've heard you've had some things to say about me.
I've given you donkey today a couple times.
I don't mind. I'm not offended by it. My family was, but I don't have a problem with that. I live for that.
You are donkey. You're donkey of the day every damn day.
Give him donkey of the day every day. Don't worry about it.
Agreed. He's the king of the jackasses. But then again, it looked like a jackass convention going on right here.
I don't blame you, man.
It's no big deal. I'm not offended by it at all. I'm impressed by the work that I see you do. And I want to get to your book because I love the title.
Okay.
Black Privilege, Opportunities Come to Those Who Create It. I want to know what's the inspiration behind it and what exact message you are trying to send, because the title alone moves me in a positive way, and I want you to talk about that.
Sounds like some boule propaganda, black privilege. What the boule tries to do is they try to put out fake images of or fake propaganda as if they're so-called pro-black, but then they go behind the scenes and they're always trying to they act as intermediaries between the masses of blacks, so-called blacks, and the elite Caucasians. All right, and this is what this guy is trying to do. He's trying to move up the ladder in the boule. All right, that's why Stephen A is being friendly to him. Stephen A is boule. All right, part of being boule are these black fraternities like Omega Psi Phi. All right, which Martin Luther King was also a member of. Real name Michael King. All right, these black fraternities, they're just a front for the so-called boule. That's all. Charlamagne, the real Charlamagne, the king of France and the Holy Roman Empire, by the way, was a so-called black man.
Talk about that.
Well, I simply think it's a privilege to be black. And, you know, when you're talking about black privilege, you're talking about something spiritual. When you're talking about white privilege, you're talking about something systemic. And I feel like we have access to...
That's partially true. So-called white privilege is systemic, but it's based on the maintenance and the preservation of their own. And you can't get angry at them for that. All right? It's the so-called white man's job to make sure that he preserves his own. All right? So-called black people are too busy trying to mix and looking to globalize, right? But there's no such thing as so-called black privilege because there's no such thing as being black, right? Black is a color, it's not a culture. Sorry. And a lot of you so-called pro-black brothers, you might get mad at that. It is what it is. If you don't like it, go back to the country that you claim that you came from that's called black. There's no country called black. There's no spiritual belief system called black. There's no government called black. There's no language called black. All right?
To a divine system that helps us to prosper in this country in spite of all the obstacles that we faced. And plus,
I agree. There is a divine system that's preserving us. For a lot of you brothers that are atheists, it is what it is. If it was not for a divine force that was preserving us, we'd all be gone. Believe me, if you've ever studied or know anything about a lot of the science programs that they use to try to lessen the so-called black population in America, you know there has to be a divine force that is preserving a remnant.
Plus, I grew up in an era where they was always constantly telling me black power and black pride and black excellence and the black man is God, black men are kings, black women are queens.
Let me say this also, because you have different movements that talk about that the black man is God, and they try to use Psalms 82 and 6. Right? You see that a lot. When the Bible says that the Most High said that you are gods, what he meant was that you are judges. All right? The so-called black man was set up to be a judge on the earth. The term, a judge is a god because he has the power to determine your fate. But to be a judge, you have to know the law. The law was given to you, so you have to understand and believe in the law to be a god over everybody else. When you reject the laws that were bestowed upon you, then you reject your godhood. You can't claim to be a god and you don't know the laws. All right? Simple as that. So when you continue reading on in Psalms 82 and 6, it says, but you'll die like men because you reject the law. So you can't read part of it, not all of it, and understand the context. Everything in life is about context. That's why oftentimes when I chime in, I bring a historical aspect to it, because You have to put proper context into your commentary.
And I'm just trying to restore that feeling.
What made you decide?
Well, you're really trying to get paid, and you're really trying to score some points with the boule. All right, bruh? Because we all know that you're bending over behind closed doors, allegedly, and you're trying to score points with the Caucasian Jews. All right? Like I've stated in the past, most pro-blacks, they're being bankrolled by the Caucasian Jews. All right? So that's really why you're doing it.
Decide to write it at this particular juncture. The timing of this is what resonates with me as well.
I mean, it's something that I've been working on for like the past couple of years. I've been doing radio for 19 years, and you know, historically, when I look at all the great radio personalities, whether it was Big Boy, Angie Martinez, and Wendy Williams, or Howard Stern, like they always had books that documented, you know, their lives, and those books inspired me. So I just felt like with the experience I've gained with my 19 years in radio and just my experience in life, now is the perfect time just to put in a book.
I'm looking at your shirt right now, and I'm assuming that's Colin Kaepernick.
This is
right?
absolutely Colin
With
Kaepernick.
The 7?
This is why I gave Stephen A. Smith donkey today. I
Yeah,
didn't like
tell
this
us
news
about
on Colin Kaepernick.
Tell us about the shirt and your take on Colin.
I mean, this is just a shirt representing Colin Kaepernick. I feel like, you know, Colin Kaepernick should not be getting punished for doing the right thing. I mean,
Well, for him to have done the right thing, then his end game should have been explicitly stated. For your end game to be to stop racism and for there to be equality, that's not a real end game. So that was for show. But I do agree that Stephen A. deserved Donkey of the Day for attacking Colin Kaepernick for coming out against voting. That's a total red herring that has nothing to do with the issue at hand.
I mean, Colin Kaepernick decided to take a stand by not standing. And he took a stand against people that are being marginalized and oppressed in this country. And I don't see anything wrong with that. I think he should be saluted and commended for that, actually.
Well, I'm
He
trying to
supported
figure
that.
that's what I'm trying to figure out.
Who cares what you supported? You know, Max Kellerman, like I stated before, he's a so-called Caucasian liberal. The Caucasian liberal believes that he has the right to stipulate to so-called blacks what they should be galvanized by, what they should believe in, what they should want. All right? Number one problem with the so-called black liberal is that they always listening to the Caucasian liberal.
Because when you talk about Donkey of the Day and you said that's one of the times you gave it to me, that's fair. Mm-hmm. But I don't hear you saying a single word just now that I disagreed with. Okay. So what's the problem? Well, I mean, where did the problem lie in terms of what I had to say about Colin Kaepernick?
I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think you said that his words didn't mean anything because he said he didn't vote.
What I was saying, yeah, that's to paraphrase, not exactly, but that's close enough.
That's exactly what your ass said.
Close enough. My position is clear, and I know that
your position is clear but uninformed.
That you have an idea about history. You know a little something about history, if not more than me, more than a lot of people. All I was trying to say is that the number one instrument, the number one tool that we have in our nation today to provoke change is the power to vote.
That's an absolute lie. And I don't understand why nobody is attacking that aspect of his argument. All right. Anybody who's faced with that point is supposed to counter it by saying, Stephen A., can you give me a list of voting issues that have been changed for the so-called black community? Right? Can you give me a series of points or aspects of this society that have changed the living conditions of so-called blacks because of how they voted? Name some. All right, if you're going to talk about the Civil Rights Act, the government already wanted that. They used King as a pawn. Right? King realized he was used as a pawn at the end, and he was eviscerated. Like I've said in the past, the race with the highest per capita wealth in America are the so-called Asians. All right, they're also the race that has the lowest voter turnout. All right. So-called blacks, this problem with so-called blacks is not that black people don't vote, it's that so-called blacks do not have a culture. They're always looking for a politician to save them. All right, and they're doing the same thing over and over and over again, looking for a different result. This is why you have people like Stephen A. that are given prominent positions. Like I said, the job of the boule is to keep you misdirected. A lot of times because he himself is misdirected. You know, the difference between disinformation and misinformation is that disinformation is put out on purpose. Misinformation is put out by accident, right? A fool like Stephen A. Smith, he actually believes what he's saying. He actually believes that voting is the key, right? Now, if he was a disinformation agent, he would be putting out this type of information, actually believing or actually knowing that it's wrong, but he'll be putting it out to confuse. He's not at that level. He actually believes this nonsense. All right. But you guys could look it up. The people with the highest wealth per capita are the Asians. Everything is about culture, right? The strongest cultures in the world, in no particular order, the Caucasian Jew, the so-called Arab, and the so-called Asians. That's why the first thing they do when they come to America, they don't worry about voting. They worry about opening a business. Now, people will say, well, that's because the banks will loan them money that they won't loan to the so-called blacks. Well, the reason why the banks will entrust the other races with money that they will not entrust so-called blacks with is because they know that these other races have a strong culture. So they will therefore have a stronger clientele, which means that their business is more likely to be successful, which means that they're more likely to get their loan repaid. All right. Everything goes back to culture.
You talk to a lot of black folks, old school, people like Joe Madison and others, people that marched, people that bled and risked their lives.
And were misinformed and were led astray, right? Following pawns like Martin Luther King and A. Philip Randolph and these other guys, Bayard Rustin, a homosexual. All right. And just to revisit the point that I made about the banks loaning, yes, there are obviously there's predatory lending practices, and so-called blacks are preyed upon and denied the rights for loans and mortgages. Absolutely. But yes, race is a humongous factor in that, but also the fact that they know that so-called blacks have the weakest culture on the planet Earth. And that means that the possibility of their business being successful is far less than people of the other races. All right. It just is. And that's what they establish a lot of their loaning practices based off of.
For us to have the right to vote, for him to come out publicly, and I should not have said it was that he voted or not voted. My real issue with him is that he publicized the fact that he didn't vote as if to encourage others not to do so as well. And I thought,
so in other words, you're mad that he was forthright and honest.
Thought that was counterproductive and counter to everything that he said he was trying to accomplish. To that you say what?
There's other ways to make change. And
I agree with that.
Malcolm X was one of our greatest civil rights leaders ever. I don't know if you ever heard the Ballad of the Bullet.
Yes.
He said to sit on your vote too, if what you want is not actually on that ballot. So
Times were different then too.
Yeah, but you wouldn't.
Times are not that different, bro. Times are not that different. You're trying to create this. This aspect of vote for whoever's less wicked. It doesn't work like that. All right. Times are not really different at all. So once again, Stephen A. is misinformed.
Wouldn't discredit Malcolm X as a leader, so I'm not going to discredit Colin Kaepernick just because he decided to not vote. Now, if one of the presidents,
I would discredit Malcolm X as a leader from the standpoint that he was a promoter of rock worship. A lot of you brothers might get mad at that. It is what it is. That's why I said in the previous video with Shannon Sharp, when he was talking about Des Bryant, I said Malcolm meant well. And people got mad. Oh, how you going to say that about Malcolm? He did preach culture. How many of you guys that got mad at what I said are members of the Nation of Islam? If you believe what Malcolm X was teaching, then you should have joined the Nation of Islam, or you should be a Muslim right now. I guarantee you, most of you so-called pro-black brothers that's all up, about Malcolm X, a lot of y'all are not even Muslims. All right? So please, just knock it off.
presidents were running on a campaign where of police reform, and really that was one of their pressing issues, and he decided to sit that one out. I would have a problem.
In this election,
just to be clear, you ain't comparing Colin Kaepernick to Malcolm X.
You see what Stephen A. did there? Stephen A. got trumped when Charlamagne brought up the ballot or the bullet, and he brought up how Malcolm X was an advocate of not voting. Stephen A. got sunned there. So now he's going to try to create a dynamic or a pretext where Charlamagne is trying to compare Colin Kaepernick to Malcolm X to try to embarrass Charlamagne. Right? That has nothing to do with what he brought up. All he brought up was an equivalency, and it was an effective equivalency, and it made you look stupid. Now you're going to see Max Kellerman, the liberal Caucasian Jew. He's upset about what Charlamagne stated about Colin Kaepernick not wanting to vote, because basically Charlamagne is co-signing Colin Kaepernick, viewing Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton as equally bad political candidates. We know that Max Kellerman being a super Caucasian Jew liberal, he's going to get upset because he thinks that Donald Trump is the devil himself. Now, let's see what happens here.
No, not at all.
I just want to make sure.
But also in this election, there was a stark choice in terms of, even when you talk about mass incarceration, the kind of federal judges that would be appointed, stop and frisk, how that's going to be enforced.
Yeah, mass incarceration, mass incarceration, that was a program that was heavily implemented by Bill Clinton. All right, so if you're trying to accuse Donald Trump of being a proponent of mass incarceration, then you have to look at Bill Clinton. All right, he's the one who really started a lot of the 3-strike laws and the mass incarceration, and he took the prison industrial complex to another level. So once again, this is the tricknology of the so-called Caucasian Jew liberal, talking out of his ass as usual.
Supreme Court justice, et cetera, there was a huge difference between the two candidates. So for him, I was all with him with his protest. We supported him on this show. But when, as Stephen A. said, he publicized the idea that he's not going to vote as though there was an equivalency in terms of this, the way this election would affect people of color in this country.
You see what the Caucasian liberal Jew did there? Like I said, they like to tell people of color, so-called people of color, how they should think, who they should vote for. How could you render that an equivalency of Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump? How could you do that? Right? Don't you know what's best for you? Let me tell you what's best for you. Right? I keep telling you, so-called black people, one day you're going to realize this whole thing is scripted. The so-called liberal Caucasian, they don't look at you any more respectfully than the so-called conservative Caucasian. 2 horns on the same devil. You're going to realize that soon enough. All right? Hillary Clinton, man, is one of the most wicked people that ever live. She got, like I said before, she got her brother down there taking all of the natural resources out of Haiti. They have hundreds of Caucasians that go down there just to rape children. All right? Allegedly. A lot of these affluent Caucasian homosexuals and lesbians, they go down there and they get involved in child sex slave trafficking. They go down there and they have pedophile parties. All right? Even Donald Trump is involved with a so-called pedophile ring in the Caribbean, allegedly. All right. I believe the island is called the St. James Island. I might do a video on that. All right. I believe it's called the St. James Island. But Trump is involved. All of them are involved in the same thing. Allegedly.
That's when not only Stephen A. criticized them, but I did as well.
Listen, I agree with you. I actually voted. So, I feel like everybody should go out there and exercise their right to vote. But I'm not going to discredit Colin Kaepernick.
All the good work he's done.
His message, all the good work he's done. I've gone to his camps and, provided my time and my energy. So I'm not going to discredit all his work just because he decided not to vote. Because, to me, human life means more than a flag.
And I don't think
that flag is just cloth with some privileges.
I don't know. We're discrediting the good work he did, but we're just pointing out.
If you believe that human life means more than the flag, bro, then you basically classifying yourself as a terrorist. Because under the Patriot Act, you better view the American flag as being worth more than human life, because anybody who comes against the flag is classified as a terrorist. All right? But anyway.
Out that wasn't a good look.
Well, with that being said, since we're on this subject, how did you feel, Charlamagne, when he decided that ultimately he would not kneel anymore? He was going to stand, and it conveniently evolved around when he was looking for a new contract to be an NFL quarterback.
See that right there, it's like you're moving the goalpost with that too. Maybe he felt like he got his message out already.
Right, but it's not about how you got your message out. He stated that he was doing his protest. He was going to do the protest until he got what he wanted, which was that people were no longer going to be killed by the so-called cops. All right? It was an argument that was created to fail. Because when a so-called black man is still looking for love and righteousness from the so-called white man, that's not meant to happen. All right? If he stood up on his 2 feet, then it should have been for something that was more concrete. But, like I said in one of my videos, the video when he first stood up, I said he's standing up for that paycheck. All right? It is what it is.
Maybe he did.
Maybe. I can't.
I'm just saying, maybe he did.
I understand where you're coming from, but I just don't like us pointing the finger like, oh, he's just doing that because no teams are checking for him now. So now he wants to stand. So he never believed what he believed in the first place. Nah.
No, I'm not saying that. I would not question his beliefs. That's not fair to him, and I get you on that. But you are a product of your actions to some degree, and if you make this decision and you're hell-bent on making this decision, and you've expressed why, and then your actions thereafter seem inconsistent with the original stance you took, how is it beyond the pale for somebody to point that discrepancy out?
What did anybody ask him? Did y'all have him on the show to say, hey, Colin, why?
We would have loved to have him on the show.
I'm just asking, did anybody ask him, why are you deciding
We'd
to
love to have
say
him.
They can't get him on the show. I made a video about it a long time ago. The reason why they've been attacking him so hard is because he won't come on the show. They're hoping by attacking him that hard that they can get him on the show. All right? Believe me, they'd love to have his ass on the show.
Show on national TV, and you just asked the question as to whether or not Colin Kaepernick would be welcomed on this show. Come on, bro.
Of course.
You know he would. You know he's of course.
Right.
If he chose not to be in that seat, he chose not to be in that seat.
Not only that, on this show, you're going to get to express yourself and say exactly where you stand.
Absolutely.
Hey, real quick, you talked about writing the book now, right?
Yes.
How much of that, like, were you running around for years like, I have this idea for a book, but the platforms weren't quite there yet? And now all of a sudden, you blow up to a certain level, and then the publishers come to you. Like, how does that work?
Yeah, that's exactly how it works. I mean, I've always had the idea to want to write a book. My mother's an English teacher, you know, and she grew up a Jehovah's Witness. So if it wasn't a Watchtower or Awake in my face, it was, you know, me reading 4 books a week as part of the booking program. So I've always liked to.
Jehovah's Witness, Masonic so-called religious organization.
To read, and I love.
I believe that their founder, Charles Taz Russell, actually has a compass and square on his headstone, if I remember correctly. Y'all brothers could look that up, though.
I love self-help books. I love Malcolm Gladwell. I love Wayne W. Dyer. I love Robert Greene. So I just always wanted to write a self-help book. My original concept was for a book called I Don't Give a F and Neither Should You. And it was going to be a self-help guide on how not to give a F.
I agree with that title because I don't give a F either.
But I was having a conversation with my man Steve Harvey, and he was like, no, Soldier, coming from where you come from, Moncks Corner, South Carolina, you got a lot of experiences and things that you can actually give to people, some lessons you can give people. So, yeah, as I've grown in my career, those opportunities just presented themselves to
Regardless of what
Congratulations.
Regardless of what we disagree with, I appreciate the book. I appreciate the work that you do.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks. I need this book. We need a book.
Yeah, it feels good. I mean, when I'm out and about, like I was out this week on my book tour, and it's just like people just gravitating towards the book, you know. And I
Of course. So-called black people are always going to gravitate towards a so-called pro-black book. That's what makes that market so lucrative. All right, brothers keep asking me about what I think about Brother Polite and all this. A lot of these pro-black dudes, they understand how to get money. All right, there's a huge market in the so-called conscious realm and pro-black realm. All you got to do is write a pro-black book. You're going to get a lot of money because that's a huge market. So-called blacks are huge consumers. All right, they love those books.
And that's all I want. I just want our people to feel empowered and enlightened. That's it.
Only way to feel empowered is through culture and knowledge. That's it. All right, but culture number one. And, you know, a lot of times brothers keep asking me, well, what's the solution? What's the solution? You have to ask yourself, if somebody got their foot on your throat and they trying to kill you, what's the solution? All right? What is the solution? Or better yet, if 10 people got their boot on your throat and you don't have the strength to get it off, what's the solution?
Charlamagne the God, we appreciate you. Black privilege.
Thank you.
Now come back soon. Wish we had more time. Wanted to get the NBA finals.
Stephen A., you got to come on the Breakfast Club soon.
I'm done. My nephew literally told me he was calling y'all show. Nobody believed that it was. I didn't know he was calling y'all out, but I am looking forward to coming on the show and we can rap exactly about what we're talking about and more. We'll have more time then.
Let's do it.
No doubt.
When we come back, Jimmy Bell.
Right. But anyway, this was a pretty good little round table discussion. But yeah, it is what it is. Peace.